Well, good morning, everyone. It's great that you can join us for our featured virtual event. It's a little past 11, so we're going to go ahead and kick off this presentation. My name is Hercules Cummings, co-chair of RED's membership committee, and with me on the other side on the line is also Ann Quandy, our executive officer, who is moderating this presentation. Together, we represent RED. Stands for Western Region Economic Development. We comprise of economic development organizations in the Northwest counties, Divide, McKenzie, Montreal, and Williams County. And our mission is to facilitate and promote a vibrant and diversified and sustainable economy through collaboration and outreach. And I have the high honor of having with us today Mr. Rich Garman, who serves as the state of North Dakota's Director of Economic Development and Finance, and he'll be presenting great business opportunities in North Dakota. Mr. Garman will discuss incentives, initiatives, assistance programs, opportunities, and resources that can fuel, encourage, and promote job creation, business vitality, and economic growth in North Dakota. And this virtual event is proudly sponsored by Halliburton, a multinational corporation and one of the world's leading providers of products and services to the energy industry. They create innovative technologies, products, and services to maximize value for their customers, assist customers with hydrocarbon location, geological data management, drilling, formation evaluation, well construction and completion, product optimization, and advancing the sustainable energy future. But as a brief bio for Mr. Rich Garman, his ED&F team worked to lead the state's efforts to attract and expand economic wealth and provide full service site location, incentivize packaging, and business liaison assistance to foster a growing business environment. Prior to his current role, Mr. Garman was an adjunct professor at the University of Mary, developing curriculums for master level operational management courses such as Lean Six Sigma, supply chain management, and project management. Mr. Garman also has an extensive background as a serial entrepreneur and as a senior project manager. Mr. Garman received his Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, an MBA, and a Master's in Project Management through the University of Mary, and holds a PMP, Project Management Professional License. So we're happy to have him here today. Now, before I turn it over to our presenter, just some quick, simple house rules. When it's your turn to ask a question, we ask that you're just very mindful of the background noise, ensure that you're in a clear space so that others can hear the question. We also encourage you to utilize the chat box within the Zoom app, and your question will be answered in the order that it was received. So with that said, I will turn this over to our presenter, Mr. Rich Garman.
Well, thank you, Herc. I appreciate that kind introduction. We have a lot going on in the state of North Dakota. It's very exciting to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you everything that's going on. You all up there are kind of at the hub of a lot of it, so some of this might be old news to some of you, but I'll talk about all of it because all of it's so exciting. We're just coming off legislative session too, so I'll give you a little bit of a flavor of how commerce fared coming through the legislative session, how that might affect, mostly in positive ways, how that'll affect what we get to do in the next 2 years, or how we can proceed in the next 2 years. So, and again, I appreciate the opportunity here. I'll give you kind of my generic slide deck here. Like Herc said, I spent a significant, well, I guess I'm not sure if you said this or not, but I spent a significant amount of my time prior to this in the energy industry. Specifically, I worked for the power industry. I spent about half my career down in the Wyoming, Utah area, and then since 2007, we've lived in North Dakota. I previously worked for Great River Energy as a project manager and economic development manager for Great River Energy. And when they exited the state or exited Coal Creek, I moved over to the Department of Commerce about 2 years ago. I'm originally from Sidney, Montana, so I'm right next to where you're all based at, I guess. I grew up there. I graduated from high school there. And then I started my college career in, actually it was University of North Dakota, Williston at the time. Now it's Williston State College, but I spent a year there, kind of doing general studies, deciding what I wanted to do when I grew up. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I keep trying. But I spent a year there in Williston at college. Then I transferred down to the School of Mines down in Rapid City and finished out my my degree in engineering. Like Herc said, I have MBA from University of Mary, and then during COVID, Great River Energy was very generous and allowed us to do whatever we wanted, basically to continue our education. So I got my MPM, Masters in Project Management. So that was, I guess, one result of COVID for me. I've been married for 33 years. That's actually what brought me back to North Dakota. My wife was born in Stanley and grew up in Watford City till about junior high. And then we met in high school over in Sydney, and the rest is history. And you can see the history up there. I have 2 adult children. My daughter, you can see in the top picture there, Bailey. She's a teacher in Mandan here. That's where I'm based at. And my son in the bottom picture there, and you can see him together over there. His title is Chief of Engagement for the North Dakota Department of Parks. So he works for the state as well. Very proud of both of their accomplishments. And you can see the one that keeps me alive. The one in the bottom right-hand corner there, my wife, Lori, a North Dakota native. And I keep asking her when I get to become a North Dakota native. And I'm not quite there yet, I guess. She hasn't allowed me that yet, but I've been here 16 and a half, almost 17 years. So I'll move on here. I want to tell you a little bit about my team. Very proud of my team. I have such an honor to lead these folks. Actually, they lead me and they let me think I'm in charge. But the folks that I have working in economic development and finance are just utterly amazing. Starting on the far left, you've got the picture of me. You know who I am. But then that lady right below me, whatever Lori doesn't do, try to keep me moving during the day, Jolene does. Jolene Lyer is the executive administrative assistant for ED&F, and she is the most important person in ED&F. She keeps everything rolling, everything going, and she keeps my life somewhat sane. And then across the top there, that's kind of my leadership team with Shaden Akeson. He kind of leads the finance part of ED&F. And then Tracy Miller sort of leads our developers. I'll explain a little bit what that is. And then the gentleman on the far right is Tom Oakland, and he leads the the ECO office, which is the Energy Coordination office, and also is in charge of the analysts and what they do. What Tom's position actually is he's the heart and soul of ED&F, or of Commerce, on bringing all of the different energy entities from around the state. He works with all of them, whether it's oil and gas or Lignite Energy Council or any of the other entities, the transmission authorities, pipeline authorities. He works with all of them to understand what they bring to the table. And then in an economic development, he takes an economic development perspective out and works with other companies to try to bring in economic development projects. So he's sort of the hub for Commerce on all energy projects, and he utilizes all of the energy expertise we have across the state, which we have absolutely tons of, probably most of which are on the call, or a lot of which are on the call right now. But Tom works with them. He's been in that position about 6 to 8 months, doing a fantastic job. The folks under Tom there, our analysts, Nigel and Kevin and Jalen, are excellent at what they do as well. They're the ones that go out and do all the economic analysis on projects. They run all the different reports to tell us what's available where. Stellar team. All the way back to the left again, under Shaden's team, we got Jessica. She manages the North Dakota Development Fund. Along with her is Samantha and Hannah. They also help run that North Dakota Development Fund and a few other items as well. And then Carla is also a program manager that works under Shaden as well. Last but not least, we'll go back to the middle with Tracy, who leads this team of developers, some of which you may know or may be familiar. Dave Lehman is our advanced manufacturing development manager. basically all things manufacturing. Dave is the expert. He's got 20+ years experience in the manufacturing industry. Brian Opp is a technological systems business development manager. And you say, what does that mean? That means everything else that we had that didn't have a home, Brian takes care of. And the biggest thing is UAS. That's Brian's expertise, is UAS. But then all things automation, all things technical, any projects like that go through Brian. And then last but certainly not least, probably our most tenured developer is Kevin Sensala, and he's our value-added ag business development manager. And he's brought home a lot of really great projects. Think the ADM project over in Jamestown, things like that. Those are Kevin's successes. He's done a lot of great work there, and he continues to do so. You'll see a couple of his projects come up here as well. So that's the team that I have the honor of leading. They do a great job. I tell them their one job is to make me look good, and that's a heck of a job. And it's a big lift for them to make me look good, but they do their level best. So that's the economic development and finance team at Commerce. So kind of maybe put some faces with some names. Talk to you about a couple things that came out of a session now. Oh, and by the way, if anybody's got a question, just stop me. I'll go for a straight hour, and Herc will have to actually turn the machine off eventually. So if you want to ask a question, just jump in and ask a question. So obviously there was a ton of bills that affected commerce in one way or another, some directly, some indirectly. One that kind of caught my eye, especially for projects that could really kind of change the direction of things that are happening in North Dakota, at least on some fronts, was House Bill 1371. Modernized the corporate farming laws to allow for more animal agriculture. That's enormous. That's huge. That means that, we're going to get to a point where we've sort of had an industry in decline for the last several decades. There used to be, let's take a look at like the dairy industry. Used to be way more dairies in North Dakota, a lot fewer now. And the reason is because it's becoming harder and harder to make a go of it with smaller herds. Those rules are changing now. Now they're not changing completely, but they are changing in the fact that we can start putting together bigger opportunities in the area of animal agriculture. One of the reasons that's really important is the fact, we'll talk a little bit later here, is soybean processing in the state is becoming a reality. Soybeans are a huge crop in the state of North Dakota, and we're on the verge of beginning to process over 75% of the beans produced in the state will be processed in the state. That'll take a series of 3 plants that are being either constructed or proposed, but we'll turn that around. And with that, we're going to have a lot of animal feed. That plays right into the ability to be able to have some larger animal agriculture operations going. Another big one that is probably going to be big for the western counties, we see a lot of activity for that, is Clean Sustainable Energy Authority. They were significantly refunded again. They got a lot of money put back into their budget, which is very important. A lot of the big energy projects that we talk about go to Clean Sustainable Energy Authority, or CISA, or CC, as some folks will call it. A lot of opportunity for clean energy projects to get some funding through that agency. I know, I think this Friday, actually today, they're closing their first round for this new session. So they'll be awarding some funds probably in about 2 months. So big project there. A lot of the projects in and around Williston, I know for sure, have taken some grant and loan money from Clean Sustainable in the last year and a half. So Commerce specifically, the North Dakota Development Fund will have approximately $100 million in it. Some of that is is replenishing the funds. I keep saying refunding, and that's not what I mean. Replenishing the funds that NDFF or NDDF has had in the past, and then another $70 million for strategic projects. And that's a question that usually most people have. What does strategic projects mean? It means large industrial projects that are needed by the state. The development fund will have the ability to manage that $70 million pool of cash. Reading between the lines and understanding some of the needs that are out there, some of the needs that are definitely out there and will be explored are fertilizer plants. And that's a big deal in the western part of the state as well, because you have a significant amount of natural gas out there. So there's a significant chance that, there's going to be projects in and around the natural gas world. The fertilizer world utilizing natural gas. So North Dakota Development Fund has a significant addition to it in that $70 million strategic projects fund. And we'll see where that brings us. It's brand new. We're just getting all of the details worked out on that, but that's one that's lying out there. LIFT was replenished up to the tune of $10 million, was officially renamed so that the acronym matched the title of the program. Vantis, which is the UAS network, received a $26 million authorization, and Grand Sky, which is the UAS park out in Grand Forks, received a $10 million allocation. Talk a little bit about growth opportunities within Commerce itself and how this is going to affect projects. We talked a little bit about the Energy and Economic Coordination Office that Tom heads up. That's a newer concept that we have put together, and we call it the Office of concept. You can see there in the middle. And what that actually means is, as we get deeper into these projects, we're establishing some fairly significant expertise in these areas. Tom is a good example. Tom spent most of his career, in fact, all of his career, working in the energy industry. And he's now leading the effort for a lot of these economic development projects in the energy world. So we put together an office. So what that means is Tom has more than just developer responsibilities. He still has the economic developer responsibilities of putting projects together, putting incentive packages together. But he also has the duty of education of the public and making sure that these projects are well understood while they're moving forward. And I think that's key. A lot of projects start off on the wrong foot by getting a bad story about them out there ahead of time. You get some misinformation or some misunderstood information about a project, and it seems to doom the project from the start. Our goal is to work with Tom and his folks that he works with to stay ahead of that a little bit. And if we're going to build a fertilizer plant, let's educate everybody we can on what that means and what that looks like. What is that going to take? What's it going to look like? What's it going to be like? How much energy is it going to take? How much water is it going to take? Get that out in the public and get that out to the media outlets. Get that out to all the local leadership well ahead of the project so that everybody understands it. And there's less fear of the unknown. Just putting out positive information and putting out truthful information about the projects as early as possible, so that there's less resistance to the projects from the unknown. Not that we're go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Howard Klug from Williston.
Oh, Howard.
With that comment that you just made about bringing these forward to the public, what was Commerce's thoughts and what was their for pipelines for CO2 capture or those kind of things? Was that I don't know, it wasn't a failure on anybody's part, but a lot of pushback on that. So what was your strategy on that?
Well, to be fair, Howard, we didn't have a strategy on that because we weren't really involved in that project very closely up front. We were aware, but that really wasn't a Commerce project. And I won't speak for the project, but projects like that, anytime you're going to build a pipeline project, you're going to get pushback no matter what's in the pipeline. You could be piping, gold bars and there would be some pushback on a pipeline project. That, like I said, that wasn't a Commerce project per se. It wasn't one that we initiated. It was initiated, by private industry and private entities. Now we'll support it however we can, but they're doing their own support. But your point is taken well. That they are getting some pushback, and our hope would be to if we're going to be involved in a project, we can at least maybe. I don't ever want to put any disinformation out there, obviously, but put out accurate information on the project and let the folks decide on their own with accurate information in front of them. Not to say that these projects didn't do that, but that would be our plan. I wish there was a better answer on the CO2 pipeline, but we weren't involved with that. Where they're at is where they're at. I certainly hope that project is a success, It's kind of integral to a lot of other projects. It's a building block for many other projects. So they are meeting some public. They're having some negative public interest, I guess is the best way to put that. And I wish them well, and we'll support them however we can. Like I said, it's kind of one of those projects that's kind of a building block for a lot of others. So did that come close to answering your question, Howard? I kind of danced there a little bit. I'm sorry, but
Thank you. Yes.
okay. Thank you, sir. So that's the intent of the Office of Energy and Economic Coordination Office. Right now, Tom is sitting with about $10 billion in his potential portfolio, and I'll talk about what some of those are here in a few seconds. We like this Office of approach, so we're going to try to replicate that. We asked the legislature to allow us to fund for an Office of Autonomy. Unfortunately, that was one of the items that was cut out of our budget towards the end. So we don't officially have that ability to do that right now, but we're going to continue to proceed with the concept, and maybe not quite as quickly as we wanted to, but proceed with the concept with an autonomy office, think UAS, maybe a manufacturing office, things like that. We're not changing the way we do business much. We're just refining the way we organize the things we do. So that's kind of the Office of. We'll keep moving along there. I'm watching the clock and I've already spent half my time, Herc, and I'm only on slide 6 or 7 here. So I better keep moving. I just throw this out there, funding opportunities, and I won't go into all of these because these are very specific to the projects, but we talked a little bit about these already. Many different attractive incentives, and I probably missed a few. I can already read here. I missed a few, but the Development Fund, LIFT, Angel Fund, Innovate ND, the newly dubbed and funded Wonder Fund from the O'Leary folks, Clean Sustainable Energy. We talked about that. The AD Fund, which is through the Ag Department, Renewable Energy Commission, APUC, property tax incentives, sales tax incentives, income tax incentives, and then there's many others. So when a new project comes to town, our developers sit down with that project, try to understand a lot of the financial aspects of the project, and put together a customized, personalized incentive package for those projects. And then they put dollar amounts on it, based upon, gross revenues and cost of construction. They try to estimate all these different things and give them a number that allows them to make their decisions with that incentive package in front of them. Now, kind of for the fun part, I want to talk about some of the projects we got rolling in the state. And actually, a lot of these are in your backyard, so it's even more fun. Anybody ever heard of a natural gas to liquids facility that's maybe eyeballing the northwestern part of the state? Right now, I don't put names on here, but you can put them in there yourself. Natural gas to liquids facility obviously takes natural gas and processes it, and we come out with a lot of valuable byproducts on the other side, including diesel fuels and other precursors for other things like plastics and other things like that. That project is varying between 3 and 5.5 billion, depending on how big they go and how fast they go. That's targeting the Trenton area right now. I'm sure most of you know about that project. That's an exciting project. I'm going to back up a half a step here. I saw the projects and I got excited here. I want to tell you why these natural gas projects matter more than anything. And you probably already know. I'm sure you already know this. The oil play in North Dakota, which is right in your backyard, is kind of evolving into a natural gas play, or at least more of a natural gas play. And more gas is being produced and can be exported on the existing pipelines. And as the natural gas production increases, without a way to move it, it basically will curtail oil production. We all know what that means. That curtails associated tax revenues. We need to develop ways to add value to the natural gas at its source and use it in your backyard. You got to use the gas there. The other option, and way to feed me a softball here, Howard, building pipelines. That's never an easy job, no matter what's in that pipeline. So short of building more pipelines, interstate pipelines, let's use that natural gas locally in the state, add value to it, and it'll be even a better situation for North Dakota is if we add value to that natural gas in state. So we talked about the gas to liquids facility, fertilizer production. There's at least 2, if not 3 or 4 opportunities on the horizon. for the construction of a natural gas to ammonia plant, making ammonia, and then probably urea beyond that, but basically fertilizer production. At least 2 of the 4 are looking at the northwestern part of the state. They don't really have any locations set yet, but the reason they're saying northwestern part of the state is they want to be near the source. So 2 of the 4 are looking at facilities somewhere in the northwest part of the state. With that incentive we have now in the development fund, I see that type of project being accelerated. That's going to help us accelerate a project like that. In the past session, or session right before this one, the legislature put $100 million, maybe more, $100 million into a fund to encourage the development of an west to east pipeline. That kind of dwindled. It didn't get a lot of interest when they first did it, but at Commerce, at least, we still view that as a very, very important project, because even with all the major projects that we could potentially put into the northwest part of the state, a west to east pipeline is still critical. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we're still trying to develop a plan for that and understand what that could look like. That would benefit everybody involved as well. That would take some of the natural gas out of the northwest part of the state, move it to other parts of the state, whether they be the central or the eastern part of the state, and allow for more usage of natural gas, and then more industry to develop across the state. So that's not dead. We're still definitely thinking about that. You can see the numbers there. We don't use M's very often. We use B's. $5.5 billion for the gas to liquids, $4 billion for the fertilizer, $1 billion for the pipeline. And then kind of a cool project too that we've been talking with for a while is a possibility of a biodegradable plastics plant. And again, they're looking at locating somewhere in the western half of the state. Again, natural gas is critical for them. They make a biodegradable plastic from methane. So very cool project. Kind of meets the narrative of the world today with the biodegradable option. They use an enzyme from the ocean while they're making this product, and it becomes biodegradable once it goes into the ground. Kind of a unique product. They're still shopping for sites a little bit. They've actually been before Clean Sustainable, looking hard at like I said, western half of the state, because they need methane as well. So stop me if you want, but I'm going to keep going here. The next big area is value added agriculture. We talked a little bit about soy processing facilities. Those are the biggest reality projects we have right now. The ADM Green Bison, it's the ADM Marathon Consortium that they have the Green Bison facility in Spiritwood right now by Jamestown. A facility that's going to be commercial, I believe in September, maybe even a little bit sooner, but this year, that facility will be up and running. Another facility by Castleton is underway. Construction, I believe, has started on that one, just outside of Castleton. And then a third facility is proposed and working hard to get their feet under them up in Grand Forks. So we're going to go from processing 0% of the soybeans in the state to within possibly 3 or 4 years to processing between 75 and 90% of the soybeans in the state. That's huge. When you process a soybean, and this is coming from a kid that didn't grow up on a farm, but when you process a soybean, you get meal and you get oil. The meal is the feed product that we can work in the animal agriculture areas. The oil is a feedstock for many different types of biofuels. Most of the oil, I think all of the oil coming off of this Jamestown plant or the Spiritwood plant, is going to go directly to Dickinson to create. I always get confused. It's either renewable diesel or biodiesel, and I get in trouble if I say the wrong one, so I'll say them both. But diesel fuel derived from soybean oil. So that's good. That's the next one there, the renewable diesel opportunities. As we get more and more soybean oil in the state, there's going to be more opportunity to process more of that oil into a diesel product. The next thing is sustainable aviation fuel that's occurring across the state, basically. Sustainable aviation fuel is, to dumb it down so I can understand it, is a bolt-on technology on the backside of an ethanol plant. It can be built from scratch, but the existing ethanol plants in the state can put a bolt-on technology on the back back end of them, to take their ethanol product and turn it into sustainable aviation fuel. What's that mean is they basically take the ethanol and turn it into jet fuel. Several of the the ethanol plants in the state are looking at that opportunity. It's a big opportunity because there's a lot of demand for it in the industry today, in the aviation industry today. That's estimated to be about $3 billion worth of projects. The other kind of interesting thing in the value-added agriculture arena is Grand Farm. Grand Farm is a huge research facility that's being developed in the eastern part of the state, just outside of Fargo, that'll allow for a lot of autonomous testing to be done. Think autonomous tractors, and a lot of other technology testing to be done in North Dakota at Grand Farm, so that farming could stay up with technology and stay in step with technology. So that's going on in the eastern part of the state. I'll keep stepping through here. We are entering into the hydrogen economy right now. And what that really means is hydrogen is becoming a desirable fuel of the future. It's a fuel that can be utilized with little or no carbon footprint. So it's becoming very attractive across the entire world. There's a couple different ways that you can create hydrogen. Hydrogen can be derived from natural gas through a chemical process where you basically disassemble the molecule of natural gas and strip the hydrogen off of it. That's very attractive, obviously, in the Williston, Watford City area where there's a lot of natural gas. There's also hydrogen created by electrolysis. If we think about what water is H2O, right? Well, that H2 part of it can be stripped off and utilized as hydrogen. And then you've got oxygen as your byproduct. So we can make hydrogen in one of two ways. And why do we want to make hydrogen? Well, hydrogen can be used, number one, as a fuel directly. It's not a little volatile, it's a lot volatile. But we can use it as a fuel. There's a significant market right now that's attractive for green hydrogen. The green hydrogen, and I hate to use the colors, but natural gas derived hydrogen is generally referred to as blue hydrogen. Natural gas derived by electrolysis is generally referred to as green hydrogen. What the green means is that it uses renewable energy in order to complete that electrolysis process. So there's basically zero carbon footprint in the production of green hydrogen. All things being equal, the production of green hydrogen is considerably more expensive than the production of blue hydrogen, which should be expected. But there's a demand for green hydrogen, and there's also a demand for blue hydrogen as well. One of the interesting things that's out there right now, too, is that North Dakota has put together a consortium of 4 states right now. I believe it's just 4 still. North Dakota is leading the charge through the EERC, and the other states involved are Montana, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. And there's a potential for a significant DOE grant to build a hydrogen hub. And understanding what a hydrogen hub is pretty important right here. And what a hydrogen hub is a series of entities that come together to produce, transport, and use hydrogen. North Dakota is primed for the production of hydrogen in a couple different ways. We can make it both natural gas derived and derived by electrolysis. So we can produce both blue and green hydrogen fairly efficiently in North Dakota. So we're the production part of the hub. The transportation of the hydrogen is another part of the hub. And then the final part of the hub would be the use of the hydrogen. We need industries that would use hydrogen on a regular basis. It's a little tough to see on that picture, but a lot of industries that would use the hydrogen fairly regularly would be transportation, like long haul trucking, busing, shipping, things like that would generally use a lot of hydrogen. The other spot to use hydrogen would be, if we go back a slide, would be in the production of ammonia for fertilizer. So that hydrogen hub has the ability to work with all of those industries. We have an application in right now with that consortium with the DOE for a $1 billion hydrogen hub grant. The initial application was due in, I think it was in April. And they whittled the number down from over 100 applications. I think it was nearly over 100 applications down to 30 folks that were invited, or entities that were invited back to submit a final application, which was done. We're in the process. They're now in the process of evaluating those final applications. And from what I hear, it'll be late in the year sometime that they'll hear back whether or not they are a recipient of a hydrogen hub grant. So what that means is that we would receive that $1 billion grant if we're selected to build out this hydrogen hub. So kind of an exciting project, very intricate, a lot of moving parts, but very great effort being led by EERC right now. The last block on there I want to talk a little bit about is North Dakota really embracing an all of the above energy policy. And I know this is probably a very high interest to the western counties of the state, since energy's, very, very critical out there. But North Dakota really does put their money where their mouth is when they talk about all of the above energy policy. You hear a lot of folks talking, talking heads on TV, talking about all of the above, all of the above. Very few of them are being honest. Very few of them want all of the above if it includes anything with a hydrocarbon in it. North Dakota absolutely does. And we absolutely are working as hard as we can, putting the best minds towards educating ourselves and figuring out how to do it, how to use every energy source we have, whether that's coal, natural gas, solar, biofuel, wind, hydrogen. We talked about that, and even nuclear. I mean, obviously we don't have any nuclear here now, but that's an up and coming thing across the world and across the United States, is nuclear is being reinvigorated. I don't know what that looks like in North Dakota, but definitely we're not shy about learning about it and understanding it. I just saw an article this morning that there's a small nuclear facility being proposed. Can't remember if it was Manitoba or Saskatchewan, but just to the north of us there. Becoming part of the conversation. So we truly have an all of the above energy policy in North Dakota, and we're willing to embrace and study all of the different options. So I do respect that about North Dakota. Carbon capture, sequestration, and use. I spent about a week, about 4 days in Washington, D.C. at an event called Select USA. And the purpose of that event was there was about 4,000 individuals there from hundreds of different companies from across the world that are looking to expand to the United States with projects. North Dakota was there in a sea of other booths that were there. New York was there, California, every state had a booth. North Dakota had a fairly modest booth because that's who we are. New York's was probably 10 times our size. California's was 10 times our size. The Carolinas were massive. Florida was massive, but we had a very clean, small booth. Tennessee was there, and they were actually handing out samples of bourbon. We couldn't compete with that, but we did have one thing that everybody wanted to come talk to us about. We had a line of people there for 3 straight days that wanted to talk to us about projects in North Dakota. Carbon capture and sequestration, we're on the map for that. Everybody wants to talk about that because everybody has that on their mind. Most of the projects that are coming out today have some sort of an ESG requirement, environmental social governance requirement. They have to be cognizant of what their carbon footprint is. They have to understand what it is and how they can do stuff with as low a carbon footprint as possible. As we know, North Dakota has the geology to handle the sequestration of carbon dioxide. We've proven it over and over again. We're doing it right now. And carbon is being sequestered right now as we speak in North Dakota. So block number 2, we have the geology. It's there and it's widespread and it's voluminous. We have a lot of geology that we can pump carbon dioxide into with no harm to the rest of the world. The other thing that we have that only one other state has, you can see on the far left there, Class 6 primacy. What does that mean? It means that North Dakota well, 2 states in the union, North Dakota and Wyoming, have the legal ability to permit their own CO2 injection wells. Every other state has to utilize the EPA in that process. What we've been seeing is that North Dakota can get a permit processed if everything is adequate and everything is right and the geology is right. North Dakota can process a permit in less than a year. We'll call it less than a year. And truthfully, that's more like 6 to 9 months. Everywhere else is probably pushing at least 2+ years to 4+ years. Why does that matter? Go over to the third column there with federal support and 45Q. What 45Q is the federal government paying companies to sequester their carbon dioxide. For the next 12 years or 11 and a half years, the federal government will pay companies on the average $85 per ton to capture and sequester their carbon dioxide. That's becoming a major income stream for a lot of companies. Now, do I believe philosophically it's the best way to spend our federal tax dollars? We won't go into that. Point is that policy is there. Companies are attracted to it, and it's bringing wealth to North Dakota right now. The biggest opportunity we have is that we can get a project permitted before they can get the project constructed. Other states, they have to wait, like I said, wait 4 years, maybe 4 years plus. That time clock is ticking on that 12-year credit, 45Q credit. And while that clock is ticking, they're not making money in the other states that are not yellow on that map. So North Dakota is primed to attract these projects that need that capability to sequester carbon dioxide. So that's awesome. And Howard fed me this question already, but on pipelines, obviously there's a pipeline that's suggested to be built. It's running into a little bit of a resistance now, but I have faith that it's going to get done. There's some issues right now, but this pipeline will bring CO2 from other ethanol plants across the Midwest into North Dakota to sequester that carbon dioxide under North Dakota. More than enough volume of storage space, and North Dakota will actually, benefit greatly from the opportunity to sequester that CO2 underground. So the pipelines projects are coming forward. Just adding it all up, and this is a very rough number, but current and future sequestration projects, think Project Tundra, think, other power plants that are planning to capture and sequester their CO2, all the ethanol plants, if they capture and sequester their CO2, well over $10 billion worth of projects that could occur with the carbon sequestration stuff. Now, this is off the script a little bit, but this is the long-term goal in the back of my head. As North Dakota builds out this CO2 infrastructure in the state, there's one other major thing that we haven't talked about that CO2 is very valuable in performing. CO2 is a fairly useful product in enhancing oil recovery. In fact, enhanced oil recovery, EOR. Interestingly, the federal government doesn't reward you as much to use the CO2 for enhanced oil recovery. They'll pay $60 a ton if you use it for enhanced oil recovery, $85 a ton if you pump it underground and don't use it. Seems counterproductive, but it is what it is. My goal and my hope is that North Dakota can build out this infrastructure on CO2 handling so that when it becomes less profitable, when this tax credit goes away, we will have that CO2 infrastructure in place to possibly reinvigorate an oil field that will be another 10 years old and maybe need a little bit of help in refracking. And I'm talking way outside of my area of expertise, and I hope Lynn Helms forgives me here, but I see the opportunity in the future for having that CO2 infrastructure in place to keep our oil field vital and producing in the future with that CO2 infrastructure that's being built right now. So that's a rich hope. I don't know if that's an official state of or North Dakota or a commerce hope, but that's my hope. Like I said, I grew up there, went to school there for a year. I grew up just across the border, and I would dearly love to keep that oil field up and running and vital. So moving right along. I got 13 minutes left, Herc. I better move. Moving right along. Another really kind of interesting opportunity that's presenting itself to the state right now are mineral and ore processing value-added projects. We have a substantial amount of critical minerals, which has actually been in the news quite a bit lately. It takes some creativity to extract those minerals, but that's what we specialize in, right? Is creativity in the state of North Dakota. So critical minerals are being evaluated, and that's important for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is, the battery industry, which is becoming more and more prevalent in this electrified world that we're living in. Some other kind of different projects that we wouldn't expect. Produced water extraction for lithium and other products. Now the other products are probably the more middle of the road products, but lithium's the one that's in the news right now. Everybody knows lithium's part of a battery production, and most people probably know that production of lithium around the world is a very environmentally difficult project. There's a lot of environmental issues with mining lithium. There's a reason they don't do it in the United States, partially because there's not a lot of it, and partially because it destroys the environment around the lithium mines. There's at least 2 companies right now that have processes that they're working through to extract lithium salts from produced water from oil wells. It takes what's now basically a waste product, salt water from an oil well, extracts those salts, some of which are lithium, refines them, and makes them available as a lithium product. So mining the salt water, the produced water from an oil well is a very innovative project. And I said there's at least 2 companies that are pursuing that opportunity right now. Ore processing, which is really kind of doesn't fit in North Dakota, right? We don't have any ore to process. We don't, but we're a very attractive state for carbon capture and sequestration reasons and other reasons that we're just good to work with. We can cite projects that would actually rather come here to process their ore than to stay in the state and where the ore is mined. They're better off from a business perspective to move their ore here once it's mined and process it than to process it in the state that it's mined. I won't name the state, but it's directly east of here. You can figure it out for yourself. But there's 2 processes that are out there. One of them is a nickel processing facility that's looking to locate in the kind of the west central part of the state. They're going to take nickel ore from north central Minnesota, mine it, and move it over to North Dakota to process it. They're actually going to use they need fly ash as a part of their process, which North Dakota has in great abundance. And then their key customer is actually Tesla to sell their lithium to. I'm sorry, not their lithium, their nickel to. My long-term goal is let's move that battery factory to North Dakota rather than put that nickel on a train and ship it away. Let's put that battery factory here in North Dakota. That's the next step, though. The other big project that's eyeing North Dakota is a iron ore processing plant that's going to take a waste product from the iron range in Minnesota, bring it over to North Dakota, process it, extract the iron from it, and then ship it to other iron producing areas of the United States. Similar projects. They both have a need for carbon sequestration and a few other needs that only North Dakota can provide. So looking at the possibility of a couple ore processing facilities in North Dakota as well. All of this brings a need for infrastructure. And again, we come back to the pipeline question, but constantly being evaluated, the need for electrical transmission, making sure we have the right amount of power in the right places. The Transmission Authority is doing a great job on that, evaluating that on a consistent basis and understanding where those needs are. Gas transmission, again, like the Pipeline Authority, again, working on that. We talked about the east to west potential, and there'll be a lot of other potential needs for gas transmission. Water transmission. My grandpa told me a long time ago that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting, and that's exactly the truth here. Is that water is a very guarded resource that is very valuable to any project that comes into an area. So water transmission is critical. That's one of the big critical projects that's being looked at in Trenton right now. So water transmission, another critical part. And then additional infrastructure. Logistics is a big one, getting the rail in the right place, the roads in the right place. Again, ballpark estimate on those projects, is going to be about, $6 billion worth of infrastructure development not all at once, but as projects are developed, there's going to be little bits of infrastructure development that go along with all of those. So we can't forget that. We have to continually evaluate what infrastructure is in place so that we don't overwhelm the existing infrastructure. Then we work with partners to develop that and make sure that that gets developed alongside the projects. I think that's pretty close. Oh, tech. UAS. We talked a little bit about the UAS stuff going on in the state. Very exciting things happen in the UAS world. Actually, I know they've been out in the Williston area a little bit, evaluating the possibility of maybe a hub near Williston. But UAS and Grand Sky, understanding what can be done in the world of autonomy. And one thing that I've learned in the last year is that autonomy means more than drones. And so that's why I just have drone pictures in here, but autonomy means air and ground autonomy. Obviously UAS, uncrewed aerial, I don't know what the S stands for. UAS, basically it's drones flying in the sky. There's also the ability of autonomous vehicles on the ground too, and they're going to be sort of managed together, kind of the same kind of projects. But think right now Teslas sort of drive themselves pretty much. A lot of farming equipment pretty well drives itself. That's becoming more and more prevalent, and it's going to continue to become more and more prevalent as certain areas of industry are going to become more and more autonomous. Stepping over to data centers, that's becoming a major thing in North Dakota too. One reason that they love being, well, two reasons. We have reasonable energy prices here. We never say we have cheap energy prices. We have reasonable energy prices. A lot of folks come to the state and say, hey, we want 3 cents per kilowatt power. That doesn't happen ever. We're higher than that. We're at a more realistic rate, but we have a more reasonable rate than anywhere else in the United States, and a very consistent rate. Our rates don't bounce around. They're very consistent. The other big thing that data centers love is they love cold weather, and boy, are they in the right place for that. Data centers are they generate a lot of heat, a lot of heat. And so having cold weather is a huge advantage to them because it makes them more efficient. And I don't believe there's a data center built in the state that actually has air conditioning in it. If you build a data center in Texas, you pretty well build it with an air conditioner, I believe, but not in North Dakota. So obviously you in and around Williston, you're very familiar with the facilities that are built just to the west of Williston there, massive facilities going in there. Another kind of cool one is over in Nakoma. Bit Zero bought the old Nakoma Pyramid and is converting that into a data center as well. So that's kind of a cool project. It's got some historical significance with the Nakoma Pyramid there. But moving along into the world of data centers, data is only going to grow. Value add there right now is parked at about $5 billion of projects that are on the books. And actually probably Williston has the biggest and best example and probably the most capital in the ground with the facility just to the west of Williston there. So leading the way there. And I think that's my last slide. So that's what's going on in North Dakota. It makes my head spin. I'm so grateful to be a part of all these projects and to be able to see these projects from their inception. And my goal now is to see them through to their fruition. I'm putting together goals for the year. We have our goals due the end of June. And one goal that every developer is going to have is we're going to start closing projects. Having a long list of projects is cool, but it's cooler to have closed projects. We need to start closing projects. It's not always up to us. Obviously, it's up to the banks and up to the developers, but we're going to push to close on a lot of these projects. Got a lot of them in the pipeline right now. So that's kind of what we got going on in commerce. There's a ton more, but that's was the big highlights. And I see I'm almost at the end of the hour here, but any questions that I can answer, I'd give a shot to. So. I put everybody to sleep, Herc.
You're good. Rich, I guess I have one question.
Sure.
As far as the hydrogen, does that require like electrolysis, like a plant to happen, or do we have one? Or because I think recently there was a Bakken LLC I think they were involved, right? I guess my question is, does it require a plant for that to happen?
Electrolysis is a process that requires equipment. Yes. I mean, back in high school chemistry, I remember doing it, not knowing what I was doing, but it's basically an anode and a cathode in water. and the hydrogen gathers around one of those two. I got a C in chemistry, so I can't tell you which one. But basically, it's a process that electrifies the water and breaks it apart. So it is a big plant of such, like industrial plant. And it breaks apart the water into hydrogen and oxygen through through electricity being induced into the water. So,
and we don't have a plant just yet, but it's coming.
Nothing of any size. Interestingly, most power plants, their generator is filled with hydrogen, and some power plants actually generate their hydrogen on site by electrolysis. Very, very small scale, but still, it's done. But we're talking major scale. We're talking, industrial plant size scale of electrolysis producing equipment. So,
does it make sense that it has to be geographically located in a proximity of other gas plants? Do they go kind of hand in hand?
I don't know the answer to that, Herc. Where there's been talk, I'll answer it this way. There's been discussion of electrolysis based plants across the state. So it can partner near other facilities. The other places, I got to back up a step here. Dakota Gas does produce hydrogen right now. They have hydrogen production facilities on that side. I blanked that out. I apologize for that. So they do make some hydrogen there. So there is some advantage to being in the gas areas. But I know there's other facilities that are eyeballing, the eastern part of the state, which is nowhere near the gas supplies. So it just depends on what their end game is, I guess. So.
Okay. Perfect. Does anyone else on the line have any questions for Rich?
So this is Howard again.
Yes, sir.
And you said that all these projects make your head spin.
Yes, sir.
Are you guys a little thin in help? And I mean, with all these projects, is there priorities? Or, when we talk to our legislators about commerce, what can you use from people out here telling them what commerce needs?
Yes, sir.
Are you spread too thin?
I won't say that we're spread too thin, Howard, but where we're at is we've put together a plan. We sort of reorganized our developer crew a little bit, and we brought Tracy Miller in. You saw her in a previous screen. Her expertise is in project management and being able to organize projects, to help put a priority on some projects so that we can focus on the big picture ones first, and utilizing good sound project management techniques to be able to manage the project portfolios that we have. Are we all busy? Absolutely. We're as busy as we've ever been. Are we to the point of breaking yet? Not quite. We're handling it, but we're handling it through organizational skills and solid project management skills. But we are busy. We are extremely busy, and prioritization is becoming a real thing on projects. We will always answer the phone. We'll always, work with a project no matter what. But we do have to work on prioritizing our work, and we're doing that right now. Which projects are the biggest, have the most needs right now, and not even the biggest. That's a bad term. Which projects have the most need right now of our attention? So we're organizing ourselves to handle that. Will we be able to handle it with the crew that we have forever? Time will tell. And if we get to a point where we're needing more bodies, we will put that presentation together and make that request of the legislature. But right now, we believe we can manage it with what we have if we use some good project management skills. So
that's reassuring. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Yes, sir, Howard. I appreciate your questions.
Anybody else with questions? All right. Well, we're at the end of the presentation right now, and I do want to respect everyone's time. So thank you all for being with us today, engaging and participating. We hope that you find this presentation very valuable and insightful. We want to thank our sponsor, Halliburton, one of the world's leading providers of products and services to the energy industry. And Ann Kwandy, I want to also shout out to her for her efforts and coordination to make these virtual presentations possible. And Rich, it's a pleasure having you. Thanks for introducing your team, providing the legislative updates and informing us of all these programs and funds. Very interesting projects like the emerging hydrogen and UAS and data centers. There's certainly a lot to wrap my head around, but a lot of activity taking place and tremendous progress underway. I think it's appropriate to say, Rich, that the future for Western North Dakota is exciting and promising, and we're well positioned to draw and attract all types of forms of energy and benefit from that. So, Rich, again, thank you and your team for leading the way. And we don't doubt that these projects will come to fruition. So we hope in the future that you're open to giving us another update on all these value add initiatives.
Absolutely, Herc. It's my pleasure. I've got the best job in North Dakota. I get to go out and tell people how cool North Dakota is and how amazing it is and why they should do business here. I've got my boss and I, Josh, we argue about who has the best job, but I think it's safe to say between the two of us, we have the two best jobs. So
I can see that. And for all those that are still on the line with us, if your colleagues or associates have missed this or were unable to make it, please note that this video will be available in about a couple of weeks on our website. And if you're looking to become a member, wish to sponsor RED and keep up to date on any future virtual events, please visit our website at rednd.com. That's WREDND.com. So enjoy the rest of the day and your weekend. And until then, we want to thank you.